one of the ways, one of the chief ways that the left has secured the narrative is with the charge of racism, is charging people with racism. And even brave speakers of truth grow pale when they are threatened with charges of racism. It costs you your job. It costs you your respect. People parse every little thing. Well, he did say, you're out of your cotton picking mind and slaves picked cotton. And so maybe, it's all nonsense, but this is what they do. There is an article on the New York Times op-ed page today that tells you everything you need to know by accident. By accident, it reveals everything you need to know about the way the left thinks about racism. And it's on the page that I like to call Knocklehead Road. So let us take a trip to Knocklehead Road at the New York Times.
Oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, ho. Let's go waltzing down to Knocklehead Road.
So it is kind of ironic that the Democrats are the ones who are constantly harping on racism. This is the party of slavery. It's the party of the KKK. It's the party of segregation. It's the party of the high crime black neighborhoods and cities and the high illegitimacy rates, which were spawned by Democrat welfare policies. And they're going to preach to us on race. Now, I know Dinesh D'Souza sort of holds them, kind of says they're still the same people. And no, I'm not accusing them of still being the KKK. I'm not accusing them of that. It does sometimes occur to me that maybe their obsession with race is partly out of guilt. Maybe it's partly a guilt reaction because of their own history as a truly a racist party. And their narrative, of course, that the script has flipped and now we're the racists is utterly untrue. There is a piece in the New York Times today by a woman named Margaret Wrinkle, who writes about the South for the New York Times because they need somebody to cover the South because they've never seen the South or been anywhere outside of 57th Street. It's called How to Talk to a Racist. And she starts out, the subhead is, white liberals, you're doing it all wrong. So let's just start there. Why is it a white liberal who is talking to racists? Why isn't it, do we on the conservative side, do we not talk to racists and try to convince them not to be racist? Or when we see a racist, good, give me some of that racism. I love it because I'm a conservative and I want some racism. No, but that's immediately her assumption is the only person who would be trying to convince a racist not to be racist got to be a liberal. All right. So here, let me read some of this because it's just so packed with arrogant, sequestered, small-minded liberal thinking. All right. She begins, there are still, and she's writing from Dateline Nashville, there are still white Southerners who honestly believe that American culture worked better for everyone, white and black alike, under segregation. There are still white Southerners who question how bad slavery really was. When an enslaved black person's health and strength are needed to guarantee the slaveholder's livelihood, this argument goes, it just wouldn't make sense to whip them or starve them or rape them or work them to the point of collapse. Now, I believe this. I believe there are people who still believe this. There are people who believe just about anything. And this is some of the stupid stuff you sometimes hear from people saying, slavery wasn't as bad as people say it was, or the workers in the North were treated just as badly and all this stuff. But slavery, as I've said, wasn't evil because of the whipping and raping. They had to whip and rape the people because slavery was evil. Same thing with socialism. Socialism doesn't devolve into tyranny. It isn't evil because it devolves into tyranny. It devolves into tyranny because it's evil. Socialism is evil by its philosophy. The same thing is true of slavery. So anyway, I believe her so far. There are true bigots in the world and true people who invent these silly narratives to get rid of the sins of the past. She says, I have exhausted my ability to understand why, deep into the 21st century, I'm still hearing otherwise good-hearted people use the same arguments that white Southerners used to discredit Uncle Tom's Cabin more than 150 years ago. It couldn't possibly have been that bad, they say, but worse in many ways are the white people who will tell you point blank that the world today, the world they actually live in and can see with their own eyes, can't possibly be as unfair as black people say it is. Okay? Grab this next sentence. Maybe this is what happens when a person's only news source is the alternative universe of Fox and Friends. So that's what makes you, they're talking about people who think that slavery wasn't all that bad and segregation wasn't all that bad. That's on Fox and Friends? Knowles is on Fox and Friends. That's the burbling source of bigotry in our country is Fox and Friends. Has she ever watched Fox and Friends? All right. It's the assumption if liberalism is the party of anti-racism, then conservatism must be racist. And boy, oh boy, I can't wait to hear how she's going to talk to me about my racism. I can't wait for her advice on what she's going to do. Now, she says all these people are racist. The people who say these things are racist. But they don't believe they are. They don't know that they're racist. And you can't write them off because if you scream at them and call them white supremacists, they're not going to change their mind. So what to do? And she says, here's the thing. Prejudice is endemic to humanity itself. Okay, human beings are tribal creatures. We trust the familiar and are drawn to it. We distrust the unfamiliar and keep our distance. White people, liberal and conservative, often claim not to notice another person's race, but it's just not true. So why is it only white people then? If it's all human beings, are black people not human beings? If it's everybody, it's everybody. We all have the same problem. All right, but not to her. This is only about white people. We're hardwired to recognize difference and to view it as an aberration. I'm talking only about garden variety prejudice. The difference between an unconscious liberal racist and an unconscious conservative racist is only a matter of degree, not of kind. The difference between an unconscious liberal racist and so in other words, we're both racist, but the conservative is more racist, okay? She says, what about the grumpy old neighbor? I'm not talking about evil racists. She's talking about people who can be saved, okay? Let's hear the people who can be saved. The grumpy old neighbor who voted for Donald Trump out of frustration with Washington. He's your first racist. The high school classmate who posts an Obama joke on Facebook. A race. I mean, he's black. You don't like him. It must be because he's black. You're racist. Here's another one. Another person who you might be able to save this person from her racism. The white woman on the plane who tenses up when a Middle Eastern man sits down in the seat beside her. Why on earth would anyone tense up when a Middle Eastern man sits down in the seat beside you with a shoebox muttering Allahu Akbar and a clock that's ticking? She says, try not to give up on these people yet. Do not give up on the Trump voter. Do not give up on the person who makes an Obama joke on Facebook. I mean, can you imagine the depths of racism it takes to make an Obama joke on Facebook? I mean, how amazingly, it's just amazing. And by the way, the thing about the Muslims she's talking about when she says a Middle Eastern person, she means Muslims. Ideas are not a race, okay? Ideas are not a race. All right. She says, before you say a single word to these poor, benighted, racist conservatives, think of all the times you made an assumption. Think about all the times you made an assumption about a stranger that proved to be untrue. God knows, you might have even thought of an Obama joke. Think of the times you found yourself feeling uneasy in the company of strangers of another race. Think about how you were forced to interrogate that uneasiness. Think of the plank in your own eye. Start there. I mean, this is an unbelievable piece about just assuming that people who disagree with you, anyone who would make an Obama, if you disliked Obama, it had to be because of his race. It's the only reason. It wouldn't be because he said he's going to fundamentally transform the greatest country on earth. Wouldn't be because he was a communist, a socialist, I should say, who wanted to redistribute wealth, who said, you want to spread the wealth around. Wouldn't be because he corrupted the IRS and the State Department and the Justice Department. No, all that stuff was fine. It's just that brown I couldn't stand. It was just that skin color that drove me crazy. Unbelievable.